into their locals, into their union work. This is a component that our brothers and sisters abroad understand. They not only work for something at a macro level, they not only work to resist, you name it, at a macro level, they are also creating alternatives where they are. Creating structures at a small scale that if and or when they are able to amass power, they can move that to a larger level. They can take it writ large. They have done the challenging work at the local level. Lastly, in the proactive political realm, strategically, I believe we have to focus on 3 arenas. What we have heard some last evening about the electoral arena, whether one is running to win or just to use it as a stepping stone to build power, to build leadership, to build alliances. That's an important arena, no question. Second is to be involved in trying to change laws, in trying to change regulations, in trying to get us out of, you fill in the blank, the wars, in trying to create a single-payer health care, in trying to prevent the privatization or corporatization of education, in trying to, well, you get the picture. All the simpler kinds of things, all the activities, many of them that we are involved in this network and in our respective coalitions. That's a second arena. Electoral being one, legislative, regulatory being another. But the third, that I'm afraid our brothers and sisters don't spend, I believe, enough time in, and that's to change the rules of the game. What I'm speaking of is specifically trying to change and alter and amend the Constitution of this country. You know, evolutionary movements of the past and in the present, elsewhere in the world, haven't just kicked out oligarchs or dictators. They haven't just changed laws concerning this or that. They have rewritten constitutions to make them more authentically inclusive, more democratic, more just, more nonviolent, more peaceful, more basically fair and equitable in many cases. Sometimes it hasn't always been the case, but you get the point. We cannot ignore, I think, changing the rules of the game. Incredibly important. And to do that authentically, I think, is to understand that that thing that we call the Constitution today was designed from step one, from day one, to be a property rights document that uplifts property rights over human rights. And to a great extent, it still does. And because that is the grounding, the foundation, it's awfully difficult on that foundation to build justice, peace, nonviolence, sustainability, and equitability. It's awfully difficult. So I suggest, respectfully, that part of our quest doesn't have to be central, doesn't have to be the first thing we do, but a part of what we do is to include that in the mix. That's why I've been involved in Move to Amend, which is trying to amend the Constitution, a piece of it, to end corporate constitutional rights and money being defined as free speech. But there's a lot more amending that needs to be done, a lot more. And Brother Saladin last evening spoke about one of the kinds of strategies that is being done at the grassroots level to do that, to come together and to envision sort of a more democratic kind of collective ground rules. And that's something called a People's Movement Assembly. People's Movement Assemblies are being done all over the country. It's a tool that maybe the Labor Fight Back Network, or maybe some of you, just Google it. Find out what it is. It's a way, an excuse, a type of organizing handle to bring people together to be involved in a collective way, authentic democratic ways. Lastly, to be kind. What does that mean today? For us, I think it means, well, first, it doesn't mean not being soft, run over, or passive. That's not what we mean by being kind. What it means is, for number one, to be kind to yourself. It's easy, is it not, to beat up ourselves for what we haven't done. For the inability to stop this war, or that injustice, or that toxic landfill, or that inability to prevent harms being done in our community, toward people of color, toward many oppressed and underserved individuals. It's awfully easy to beat up oneself. Try not to do that. To be kind also means to treat those that we work with, occasionally or more frequently. Yeah, we can have differences. We'll have differences. That's sort of the human condition. But to understand that there's differences that we can live with and those that maybe are not. What I was told once is you can find compromise, and it's okay to compromise on the non-essentials, but don't on what you think is the real core fundamentals. Compromise on those, but things that are not so essential, give it up. And to respect one another. We all come from different places and have different experiences. And I think trying to respect those. And Jerry, certainly didn't agree with many of the things I did, and vice versa. And I'm sure the same was with you, the same with Bonnie. But we were kind toward one another, and I think Jerry, despite sort of a crusty surface sometimes, was an incredibly kind person. To be kind is also to be kind to those who have come before us. The people whose shoulders we stand on. But also to be kind for those generations to come. We have a responsibility to not screw this up. And lastly, and this may be the hardest, it's to be kind to those who, in a great many respects, are those who are committing the greatest harms to us in our communities. To make a distinction between them as human beings and what they do, to oppose with every ounce of our energy what they do, but nevertheless to see, if possible, the humanity of them. And to make the distinction between what they do as individuals and the structures and the institutions behind them that are causing the violence and the injustice. Not as a blank check to excuse their behavior, but to understand. To be smart, to be strategic, to be kind. It's what Jerry and Bonnie were all about, and what we need to be all about. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great, just redefine the meaning of last week. Definition.
Glad I wasn't here.
But we loved every word of it. You did yeah, great job. So, okay, now I want to introduce, and I've had the honor of being in the street with all of these guys, except LaTanya. I've just met her, and I'm sure I will be before my life is over, LaTanya. Whether it's with an anti-war protest, or whether it's an anti-racism protest, whether it's in Washington with some of the guys, that are here tonight. All of these folks speaking. So we do want to move on with the program, and our next speaker, I've had the privilege to be with her at various things around the South. And Teresa Ellamy she She's the founder and the regional director of the Southern Anti-Racism Network. And since 1965, she has committed her life to ending poverty and racism as a civil rights activist and a union organizer. She resides in Columbus, Georgia, but I think she'll probably have some remarks too about what Cleveland meant to her in those early years, like in 1965. So, Teresa, if you'll come forward, please. Thank you.
Well, how many minutes? Well,
we have some great aren't the speakers good?
Yeah.
And let me ask the question I asked with the others. How many of you have ever heard of SARN, Southern Anti-Racism Network? Very good. Okay. We want to learn more tonight.
Well,
Hold the mic up.
can you hear me?
That's better.
Okay. Well, you know, being here in Cleveland, and I had said to Alan, well, I don't want to be up here teary-eyed about Jerry and then hearing about Bonnie too. Just to kind of give a context for my experiences, because there are a lot of experiences in the room, a lot of experienced people. I started out at 17 with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, in Tuskegee, working in Lowndes County and around the South in 65, 66. It was right when the Voting Rights Act had passed. And in my classroom at Tuskegee, Stokely Carmichael came, and after a little conversation, he announced that he was with the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and he was for Black Power. And will you join me? And we all raised our hands in the classroom that day. And that is my big aha moment, which set me on this path. And I'm originally from Atlanta. So when I got back into Atlanta, the summer of '66, and Stokely and then H. Rap Brown, everybody was coming back into Atlanta because the national office of SNCC was in Atlanta. And my mother was so angry with me because I had a scholarship to Tuskegee and I had blown that because I quituated with a lot of the students at that time and joined the revolution that we knew was right around the corner. And my mother said, if you're going to be screaming Black Power, you get a job. And I got a job at the phone company and joined the union.
Yeah, all right.
I joined. And so it was that really defined the rest of my life, being a part of a movement, the labor movement and workers' rights. And I could make that connection between that SNCC aha moment and the bosses, and fighting the bosses and going on strike with CWA, CWA 3204, that was my local in Atlanta. And so that's how I started out. And I got very involved in the women's movement as a part of being in the women's ghetto at the phone company. And so as we fought for women's rights and pay equity, and we still fight for pay equity to this very day, can you believe it? And it was that fight joining 9 to 5, the National Association of Working Women. And when the National Association of Working Women formed their own union, District 925, which was headquartered here in Cleveland. So the founder of District 925 recruited me out of Atlanta, and I was like, we need unions in the South, why can't I stay here? And they said, right to work, too hard, come to Cleveland. Had just passed the Public Employees Collective Bargaining Law back in the 80s, mid-80s. Maybe some of you remember. And so I came here, and the Cleveland Public Library was my first campaign, wall-to-wall unit, from the librarians to the custodians. And so I joined the labor movement with the fierceness that I felt coming out of SNCC. And I met Jean Tussey. And I really appreciate Greg talking about Jean, because Jean was a serious feminist. She was a fighter, and I was always so worried because I said, I don't understand the socialism. I only knew about the Communist Party being in the South, And when I came here, and it was the SWP, it was the Workers' World, it was so many different groups. And I mentioned that because hearing about the reuniting of the National Assembly and UNAC, and the problem that we have, I think, in terms of our revolutionary movement, is the fact that there's such fragmentation, there's such splintering of who we are, and we haven't built that united front yet to make the kind of fight that we want to fight. And Jean and Jerry, at the time I met them, they were part of something called the Fourth International Tendency. And they were fighting to get back into the Socialist Workers' Party. And many of my comrades in another socialist organization of which I am a part, called Solidarity, a socialist, feminist, anti-racist organization. I joined that organization in 1997. And I'm saying all of this about this just to give a picture of what a hodgepodge of organizations that we have in our revolutionary movement, and how we need to somehow figure that out so that we're uniting in the process that we talked about in one of the workshops this morning, the one on independent political action, where we talked about the importance of mass movement building, which is what Joe was talking about, because that is where the power is. When I think back to the 60s and the tens of thousands of us young people who were in motion at that time, we were invincible. We went everywhere.
Right.
And I meet people now, and they go, I was with SNCC, where were you? Greenwood, Mississippi, where were you? Albany. And that still exists to this very day. And we're still connected in that way because of that mass movement of that period. And now we're at a point where every single year we will celebrate the 50th anniversary of something. We started in 2010, and we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the founding of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. In 2000, I guess it must have been 14, we were celebrating the Freedom Summer, and so then we celebrated the Voting Rights Act, and then we'll commemorate the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King next year. It'll be 50 years next year. So what are we going to do with his cry against the Vietnam War and his cry against war? What are we going to do with that? And so these occasions of 50 years, and as someone pointed out this year, 100th year of the Russian Revolution. So I'm saying all of this for us to try to think of ways that we can unite in the mass movement building process. And I think Jerry would feel real good about the conversations that we're having here today about the independent politics and about the labor movement. I must say I feel some concerns about some things that we've been talking about here in terms of how we go forward. And since I was asked to come up here in the conversation, I just feel like I really need to say some things about how we go forward in terms of when we get together tomorrow to talk about it, because I'm just thinking a lot about the 52 years I've been doing this. I turned 69 on June 27th. And I'm a brain aneurysm survivor. Yeah. In 1994, they were pronouncing me dead in a Boston hospital. And my neurosurgeon said to me, you're my miracle patient. I can't explain how you're alive. Let's more walking and talking. So, you know, sometimes you realize that there are some things that you want to do, and I want to stay alive long enough to see some things that we can do, and I'm really committed. But one of the things, and I know I'm going all around here, but one of the things that we did today was we played Ella's song. How many are familiar with Ella's song? And we played that.
Sweetheart in the Rock.
Yes, Sweetheart in the Rock. We played that in the conversation today. And it's all about how I had the opportunity to work with people and how the young people
bring us forward.
Yeah, I got to. And so that's where we are right now. And when I look around the room, I know that there are a lot of seniors in this room. And I think we really do, because when Devin contacted me and told me that he was going to be here, and I've known Devin for a few years, we were part of something called the Black Student Association? Black Student Action Network. Black Student Action Network. And that's how I met Devin, in Philly, I think. And you were living in Cleveland, I met you in Philly. And so all of the young people who are coming out now and doing things, it's just amazing. Now he's running for mayor. And so those are some of the priorities I think we have to take a look at, because it's a long haul. It's gonna be much longer than any of us would like. And I don't want to ramble on too long, but I'm just so full of the moment being here. And I am just so glad that Alan encouraged me to come, and that Don asked me to say a few words in a workshop. And now I was able to switch over from the southern states to the independent political action, because that's important. Because Jerry was really fiercely for a Labor Party. He really wanted that. I remember that about Jerry. And we have not done that yet. In South Carolina, they have the Labor Party ballot line. It's the only place where there is a Labor Party ballot line in South Carolina, thanks to those wonderful organizers in the ILA and the folks down there, the Riley brothers. And so they have their Labor Party ballot line in South Carolina. But one of the things that we talked about in the independent politics workshop was how do we begin to revive the idea of Labor Party advocates. It's kind of a starting over, but it's time, because we need a working class party that's going to be for us. What I know, having worked on voting rights, and those folks in Lowndes County, Alabama in 1965 and 1966 who formed that first Black Panther Party, the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, which became the first Black Panther Party, and had that symbol of the Black Panther on the ballot, where there was that white rooster and the donkey and the elephant, but they had the Black Panther, and they knew who their candidate was. And so I say that we have to begin to educate people about the lesser evil thing doesn't work. That's right. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so we have to get to the point, and that is one of the failures of the left in the United States, of not building that party as an electoral party so that we can really take power in places where we need to take power, because it is about system change. And the Green Party is where a lot of us moved to, when the Labor Party kind of collapsed. And so there are some things going on there. One of my comrades, Howie Hawkins, who built really strongly the Green Party in New York and got the ballot line for the Green Party in New York by running for governor. And now he's running for mayor of Syracuse. And there are other Greens I know in the room. And I just think that we have to continue to build that party. The Green Party is not a Labor Party, but it's calling itself an eco-socialist party now. And those movements coming together is important. Now, the labor movement is not going to break with the Democratic Party as a whole in terms of the labor bureaucracy. And I know that Chris and others have been talking about the need to try to push the labor bureaucracy. Well, I work for the labor bureaucracy, and it doesn't push well. And so in terms of what we have to do as rank and file members and mass movement members inside of the labor movement, I think it's just important for us to face the broadness of the labor community alliance, because the unions do 911 solidarity. I was an activist in Jobs for Justice, and it was rent a Jobs for Justice sign. We got a contract fight going on, we got a union organizing drive, come bring the signs. But when it came to the community issues, and that's what we have to change. Now, the labor movement has to see itself as a part of the community. So when we're dealing with the institutional racism in school districts, like the school district pipeline, the labor movement has to be there for us. It has to be there for us. And so that is what we have to have, because some of us identify with having liberation struggles of our own, and our self-determination around our liberation struggles. Reparations now, if you hear me, reparations now. That's the kind of work that we have to begin to connect together, so that we aren't just saying, come for the picket line in terms of labor. And I say that because we are at the Labor Fight Back Network Conference. But the Labor Fight Back Network, knowing Jerry Gordon and knowing Gene Tussey, they understood very clearly that it was so much bigger. Because I introduced Gene Tussey and Jerry Gordon to the Black Workers for Justice. I was a member back then in 1986 when I met Saladin Muhammad at a Labor Notes conference. And in 1989, I still have that picture, Saladin, of you, me, and Gene Tussey and Harold Mitchell and others, where we began building the Organized South Solidarity Tour, which toured the whole Midwest and culminated here in Cleveland in 1990. It was a glorious moment, and I really appreciate that opportunity and to make that connection, because Gene and Jerry and Saladin should be up here, because Gene and Jerry really embraced the Black Workers for Justice and wanted to be so much a part of it. When I think about the many times that Gene and Jerry and all of us traveled to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and sat and met with the Black Workers for Justice, people from the North, Gene and Jerry were totally committed in that way. And Saladin should be up here. Really, Saladin, come on now.
He talked last night, though. He did a great job last night.
All right, I'm sorry, I missed it. But that's what I remember, how much they embraced and understood democratic rank-and-file control unions. And as a worker said in North Carolina, when I asked once, how do y'all do this, operate like this without a union? And one worker told me, we negotiate every day. We negotiate every day. And so it's that kind of work to rule, rank and file control of the workplace that we can share with every single worker, because workers must self-organize and build their own unions. And that's what I learned from the Black Workers for Justice, how workers were self-organizing. With no union, they had their organization, the Black Workers for Justice, inside workplaces throughout North Carolina. And that is what we have to be able to get across, that level of self-organization among workers. Because I can tell you right now, after 52 years, my biggest concern is finding people who can think for themselves. I am not always right. I tell people around me all the time, Teresa, what should we do next? And I want to say sometimes, I don't know, think for yourself. And that is where I want to be at this point, because Teresa is not always right. But I'm surrounded by people. I'm so glad to be working with people who think I'm right a lot. And it's a kind of good thing, because we get a few things done. But it's important that people think for themselves. And that's what we have to do as organizers, to really encourage that, for people to question. And sometimes I say, if I do this, what do you think will happen? Because we have to get people thinking strategically. And I say the art and the craft of organizing. The craft of organizing is pretty easy to teach. It's about the list, it's about building the base, but the art of organizing is about thinking strategically. If I do this, what will they do? And so to be able to really figure those things out, and so that's the point where I am right now in terms of the people I work with, the art of organizing. How do we raise that level in our organizing so that we are very clear that these are important times and times where transformation is possible. And I really am so glad to be here with all of you, and some of you I met for the first time, but it won't be the last time we talk, Priscilla, and others. So I'm looking forward to us building this road ahead to transform this situation, because this is our moment. And on the single payer issue, let's start talking about it as Medicare for all, because there is a single payer system in this country, and it's called Medicare. I have that.
So do I.
I have that. And so I know how that works. You pay a certain amount per month, $100 and some dollars. You get to go to all kinds of doctors, and the insurance companies come to you because they got a contract with Medicare. Not you paying them some crazy premiums. You don't pay them a dime.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what we want. That's what we want. We want everybody to have Medicare for all. And all of the doctors and the physicians for a national health plan, that's the way they talk about it. So in terms of how we talk about what we want Medicare for all. It's a system that's already in place. Everybody should have it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The memories being shared tonight are so good, and I've seen a couple of tears in a couple of the speakers' eyes, and they do lead us forward. Before I bring up the next speaker, one of the speakers that could not be with us tonight, and she did send us a message. I'm just going to briefly read one comment from it, and that was Koya Clark. And Koya, of course, we really miss her being here, but I want to read, because tonight we are paying tribute to Jerry and Bonnie. She says, I salute our fallen comrade Jerry Gordon. His commitment and solid contributions to building a workers' movement in the USA will long endure and justify his life's work. Especially, Teresa, I'm saying this, especially I want to remind that his call for a Labor Party must continue to resonate in discussions on the present socio-economic political crisis in the United States, complicated by a dangerously positioned right-wing President Donald Trump. The call for a Labor Party to solidify workers from all areas of the political economy, private and